Cosmic True Slasher Review.
Can you hear it? Sorry about that. I was my whole computer was on mute.
We were just complaining about our computers a minute ago before you
It's so
jumped in.
funny. I'm sitting there going, "Am I on mute?" And then I saw that I was. So, my bad.
You're good. How you doing today, sir?
Been one of those days, but I'm doing all right.
I feel that. Our other host, Rob, he had some stuff come up quickly, so he's not going to be joining us today.
No worries. It's
Probably for the better, to be honest with you. I did a little bit of reading on you, Ben, and I kind of fell in love with this bio thing that Fright-Rags has going on. I see that your love for the genre started watching Halloween in 1981.
That's correct. Yep, I was 4 years old, and it was the television premiere. It was a Friday night movie, October 30th, and yeah, that's what started it all.
While I was reading, you said you wanted more. Can you, because I wanted to start with your passion here, because I feel like everything that's great in anything is created by someone who was a fan and had passion. So could you maybe talk about a little bit of like what other stuff did you get into? What was like the biggest things on your horror journey path, if you will?
Sure. Yeah, it was pretty I guess it was sort of organic. Like I saw Halloween, and again, at 4 years old, you know, I had not been exposed to anything like that. And this was right at the sort of the beginning, the very, very beginning of anything having to do with home video. So what I remember early on in those days was seeing Halloween, and around that same time, Elvira was actually doing Creature from the Black Lagoon, and you could get from participating like gas stations or something, you could get 3D glasses because you could watch it in 3D at home, which was pretty wild. And you know, I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and my brothers being 8 and 10 years older than me. My sister is 5 years older than me, so there's kind of a gap there. But I do remember in the early days, my brothers weren't really huge into horror, but you know, I remember them renting Creepshow like probably around 82, 83. I mean, it probably would have been 83 because I think when it came out in 82, right? So movies back then, yeah, it didn't hit video stores until at least like a year later. But so anyway, I just remember little things like that. But then we had moved out to the suburbs in 83, and shortly thereafter, and we had bought a beta machine because Rochester, New York, where I'm from and live now, it was like a test bed for VHS and beta. They were testing which format would win. And my dad bought a beta machine. So we would go to these mom and pop video stores, and I just remember looking at the movies that were available, especially in the horror section, and thinking of Halloween and thinking, I want to see somebody in a mask kill a bunch of people. Like that was sort of like, that was like what I wanted to see. So if it was there, I wanted to see it. So things like Slumber Party Massacre, or God, I remember even Splatter University, which is an awful film, even though there's some kind of funny things about it. You know, obviously any Friday the 13th, I mean, once I found that, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, this is amazing, right? Because Halloween, you know, obviously is 1978, Halloween 1 came out, or Halloween 2 came out in 81, so obviously those two I had, and I loved Halloween and Michael Myers, but I only had 2 Halloween movies to watch, right? So Friday the 13th, there was a new one every year, so that was pretty awesome. So it was just kind of this organic thing on a weekend, and I would go to so we had about 5 or 6 mom and pop stores within, you know, only like a 4 or 5 mile radius. But the one that I started frequenting the most was about a mile away from my house. It was in between, actually, where I ended up going to middle school and high school was right in between there. And I would walk by it every day. And by the time I was 9 years old, it was a really small shop, but like I always rented horror movies there, and I would go there and I would try to get a movie. And the people would be like, hey, you're too young. I'm like, well, call my parents. And they call my parents, and my parents yes, that he can rent it. So by the time I was 9, they actually signed the back of my card so I could just rent whatever I wanted, except anything that was behind, the saloon doors, of course. But,
Yeah.
so I kind of had this weird like gold card. As long as I had the money, I could just walk up there and be like, boom, I'm getting whatever I want. So my friends and I would go up there all the time. And in the summer, it was like almost a daily event. And we would watch movies over and over again. So I stuck in the slasher genre for the most part, even though I did love, zombie films. And I mean, Night of the Living Dead I loved, and trying to think of like other movies that stuck out to me. I mean, Silver Bullet was one that I loved growing up. So I mean, I watched almost everything, but I really kind of stuck with slashers in the early days, I should say. Yeah.
Right. I love that. That sounds like, young me at a Blockbuster.
Right.
Absolutely. In 2003, I was reading you started really getting Fright-Rags up off the ground. Can you go through the early stages of the company before it was anyone knew what it is now?
Sure. Yeah. So 2003, I had, long story short, after I graduated high school in the mid 90s, I had gone to college for a year. I was going to study illustration, then I was going to study film, and then I dropped out because I just wanted to play in my band and work. And I did that for a few years. And then I realized I kind of fell in love with the idea of graphic design. It's something I had been into prior, but with Photoshop, I'd gotten a copy of Photoshop 3 and I just couldn't stop using it. It was so much fun to like manipulate photos and create like album covers for the CDs I was burning and stuff like that, and I thought, wow, if I could make a living off this would be great. So around the time I was supposed to be graduating college, I actually went back and for a 4-year degree in graphic design. So I graduated in 2002, got a job here in Rochester. My girlfriend and I moved in together. And I was, we were going to get married, we were engaged, and I was like, I don't know, I was sort of kind of bored at my job. I mean, it was a small place. I was a graphic designer at a laptop bag company. It was a small, I mean, when I say small company, I was the third person hired. It was the owner, the office manager, and me. And I was in charge of all the product photography and website and print collateral and all these things. Which was great because it was like I got to do everything, but it was all based on like a few different types of products, which were cool, but it wasn't my passion. So around that time, I had a lot of free time. I mean, aside from working, my fiance and I, we were living in an apartment. We didn't have, a house and kids yet and stuff. So I had a lot of free time. And I spent a lot of time online on forums because this is Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So I would, be on horror forums and I would, engage with fellow fans. And one of the forums I was on a lot was called Night Owl Forums. And it was started by a guy named Justin Mabry, who has gone on since to create Trick or Treat Studios, which I'm sure you know about.
Absolutely.
And I became a fan of his work. He did the best Michael Myers masks, and we would talk a lot. I mean, he and I would spend, no joke, like 7 hours on the phone. Like, it was crazy because we were the same age and we just had the same interests and stuff. And at the time, I was like, I had these ideas. I was sketching out some ideas. I wanted to do something. I just wanted to create something. And I came up with this idea for, it was right around the time when What Would Jesus Do was a big slogan everywhere. I saw bumper stickers and all this stuff. And I thought, well, what would Jason do? And I thought that was clever and funny. And if it was WW with a hockey mask and a D, then people would know what that meant, because it's WWJD, right? It's the same, right, but it's Jason instead of Jesus. So I thought funny. That's pretty funny. And because I'm thinking to myself, someone's had to have done this before. And I couldn't find any examples. I'm like, well, so I designed it real quick. And Justin was like, dude, you should post that in my forum. I bet people would love to buy that on a t-shirt, because I was thinking about making t-shirts. I'm like, you think so? And he's like, yeah, I'll post it for you. So he posted it because I didn't want to like spam his board, and be like, hey, look at my stuff.
Right.
Because I had that. I took that hockey mask and blew it up on a shirt. And then I took like this was early days. I made like a Michael Myers looking thing and it said Trick or Treat on it. And again, it was because I liked quirky t-shirts growing up. I was big into like skateboard and BMX culture. And I liked, like Airwalk and, all those brands and stuff. And logos and things, but I also loved horror. And I never owned like a horror t-shirt other than like a Halloween Anchor Bay shirt that came out in like 98 or something. And I was like, what if I just make my own? And I looked them up online, and the only company at the time that I thought was even remotely cool is Rotten Cotton. But the stuff they were doing, I was like, well, I want to do something a little bit different than that. I wanted it to have a humor angle, or at least something that didn't have the name on it or something. So anyway, we posted these designs, and a bunch of people were like, oh, I'd buy that. And I was like, maybe I should think about like making these. So I went online, I found a company that you could just upload a design and buy shirts. It was ridiculously overpriced. Like, I don't know, at the time, especially 20 years ago, for like $10 for a one color print. But granted, I was only getting 20 of each, so it's probably not that far off, but the shirt blanks weren't that good. But anyway, I decided to get 3 designs, 20 shirts each. So it was gonna be like $600. And I remember hovering over the buy now button, you know, and I was at my job, and I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. So I just bought them, and my fiance was like, what the hell are you doing? We're trying to save for a wedding. I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna sell some shirts. And I'm like, I need to create a website to sell these because I don't know how else to sell them. So I designed a website, and I thought, what could I even call this? So I was thinking up names, and I thought, well, Fright-Rags sounds cool. It's t-shirts and it's horror, so that sounds cool enough, I guess. I got the domain name, and I put it up, and I kind of advertised it on Justin's board and started selling some shirts. And from there, just I never stopped. Really.
I have kind of a throwback question for you. If you remember, did you have like in those early days, did you have any like best-selling early designs that just surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, again, in the early days, I was doing all the design work myself. And so I remember the What Would Jason Do shirt sold really well. It was out of the 3, that was probably the best seller. And funny enough about that design, in 2 years, so it was in 2005, I got a cease and desist from New Line Studio for that shirt. And it was because I didn't never ever said Friday the 13th or Jason or anything, but they claimed that they owned the trademark and copyrights on the shape of the hockey mask, the eye holes, the triangles, and all that. So to be completely honest, I was probably a little cocky, but I said, all right, fine. I'm going to redesign this thing and take out all of your trademarks. If you claim you own the eye shape, I'll change the eye shape. If you claim to own this, I'll change it. So I changed it, and it ended up looking almost like an alien mask. But you've seen those generic hockey masks at drugstores and stuff around Halloween. They all look kind of weird, but they get the point across. You know what it is.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. So I changed it, and I just threw it back at them and said, look, I took out your trademarks. I'm going to continue selling this, you know, bye. And they were, and I mean, look, that was ballsy, especially at the time. And they said, you know, okay, fine, just don't call it Friday the 13th, which I never did, because that's a, you know, copyrighted title. And funny thing about that is the day after that, a day or two after that, Hot Topic ended up buying, well, they wanted to place a test order because I was in talks with them. We had sold a Nosferatu shirt into their stores, and they were interested in that design, but I said I couldn't sell it to them. And then it was funny. Everyone on Justin's board said they hated it. They thought it didn't look good. And I'm like, no, I get it. It doesn't look great, but it gets the idea across. Well, we ended up selling like 8,000 in Hot Topic. And then Judah Friedlander ended up wearing it on 30 Rock, which is pretty rad. So, I mean, that design had this crazy life to it for years after the fact. I mean, that's...
Oh my God. I've seen that shirt. I've seen the episode of 30 Rock. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's awesome.
That's like, it was one of my favorite little hidden... I didn't know that was a Fright-Rags t-shirt. That's amazing.
Yeah, he and I met at a convention, and we hung out, and he loved the shirts, and I gave him a bunch, and he's like, look, I'm going to wear one of these on 30 Rock. And I'm like, sweet, but you know, whatever. That I'm not going to hold anyone to that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, that's nice that enough that he even said that. And it was probably a year or two later, I got an email from, was it NBC, and they're like, hey, you need to sign these documents. You got to prove that it's yours, and which I did. And then nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, you know, at the time, I don't think I was as into 30 Rock. I mean, I think I was watching it at the time. But anyway, I wasn't watching it that particular night. My brother called me. He's like, dude, your shirt's on TV. And I was like, oh my God. So I went back and watched it. And it had some good screen time. Of course, they never said, you know, Fright-Rags or anything, which is fine. but we got so many orders. Like the second it aired, I looked in my email and I was like, oh my God, people are finding it. They must have just searched what would Jason do shirt. And it was pretty awesome, I have to say. It was we got like on the local news, and it was pretty it was so funny. Like it was a wild time.
That is so fun.
That is funny. I'm glad you kind of walked into my next question though, Ben. You were going early on and just, you're making whatever you think looks cool and, pulling the ballsy move or standing your ground with your art and all that stuff. But now Fright-Rags has grown to such a size where there is licensing involved and, all that stuff. What is it like when Fright-Rags now says, hey, we want to make a shirt for that?
Oh yeah, I mean, licensing is absolutely involved. I mean, look, in the early days, I knew to do anything legitimate, it had to be licensed. I just had zero clue as to how to even do that and
Right.
what that entailed. And so over time, you start learning the ins and outs. I mean, a lot, I had really small licenses early on that I would start learning things about. Like, again, I couldn't afford much. And a lot of these companies wanted you to be an established company. And knowing what I know now, there's no way I could have handled it back then. I mean, I wasn't making any real money. And, I mean, these days with licensing, it's a thing. Like when you work with, say, a company like Universal Studios or most companies, I mean, you have to have them on your business insurance. There's so many things. I mean, these documents are 20, 30 pages long of legalese that you have to go through and ensure. Like there's so many moving parts, with the approval process. So as we grew and I started getting some, licenses, and then more, these small licenses turned into slightly larger licenses that turn into bigger ones, and you start developing relationships with all these studios. Nowadays we've worked with pretty much every major studio out there. And so we have currently over 70 titles we license. So if you think about that, I mean, that's something where every quarter we have to issue sales reports on all, items we sold. We have to issue royalty payments. Deals typically last 2 years. So every time a deal comes up, if we want to renew it, we have to renew it. And there's money that you have to put up front. It's called an advance against royalties. It's a process, and even getting designs, like when we want to do a shirt. So if we want to do a shirt for, I don't know, Halloween, we have to get approval on that design. So we have to send it, we send it to Malik Akkad, the son of Mustafa Akkad. He owns Michael Myers, him and his guy who works with him, Ryan. I mean, they look at everything we do. I mean, we're good friends with them, which is great. I mean, they're actually some of the easier ones to work with because it's not this huge studio where you have to upload it to this system and like 10 people have to look at it, and you have all these lawyers that look at it, and you get these sometimes the most ridiculous changes where you're like, are you kidding me? Like this word isn't, approved, and it's like, it's the, you know what I mean? But you can't use the word the in the sentence. It's like, oh my God. But like, and they have to look at it, make sure it's approved, and, get samples and all those things. So it's a process, and it's not, believe me, it is not easy sometimes, especially with new movies when you're trying to get something out in time for the film to come out. That can be an extra stressor for sure.
Yeah, it's scary to think of what you guys must have to go through for stuff like that. And because I do follow that, because I do find it interesting. Even with things like video games, you see these game companies having to deal with licensing and approvals, and artwork is such a thing there. I was going to ask you, but you kind of went over a little bit, the most like what had to be the most ridiculous, without saying any names, obviously, like some of the biggest headaches of going through that approval process.
Well, I'll tell you one, and I don't really mind talking about this because it's more funny than anything. So I'm not trying to dog anybody for anything.
Right, absolutely.
Just give you an example, like a film like Jaws. Okay, Jaws is owned by Universal, but Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg, and everybody have to look at our designs to make sure they're okay. And first of all, when you get a license to a film, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want.
Right.
In many cases, you can't even use talent likeness. So, for example, Jaws, we can't use Roy Scheider or Robert Shaw or Richard Dreyfuss, anything like that, right? Like you have to you basically can use a shark, right? Now you can use them in shadow or if they're turned or things like that, but you can't show their face. And again, that's fine. I understand those limitations. That doesn't, sometimes it bothers me because you just want to do some cool things, but other times it's actually works in your favor because you have to be more creative in your approach. And that's okay. In this case, though, we had a design that we had done where it's Quint, but he's not facing the viewer. He's turned around, so you see his back, and he's sort of hunched over at the ready, like he's gonna fight. And the shark is coming up in front of him because, as you know in the movie, the shark comes up over the boat and gets him. So this is sort of that moment where the shark is coming out of the water. He's in the boat, and I thought it was pretty cool looking. And they said, "Hey, we don't like this. It looks like the shark is about to attack." And we're like, well, yeah, that's the point. And they're like, well, that's a little too like violent or graphic or whatever. And I was like,
Wow.
you've seen your movie, right? Like that's a pretty bloody scene, even for a PG movie. And I'm like, and they're like, yeah, you can't even really show blood or anything. And I'm like, okay, are you retconning this family film? Like, I mean, Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's like the classic and masterpiece. And so this was an example of what they're kind of hoping, what they're wanting to do with their property, and we just weren't able to do that. Which again, it's fine. It just struck me as funny because in this case we weren't even showing blood because this was after the point where we knew we couldn't show blood. I'm like, yeah, but we can't even show the instant, like even the approach of this shark about to hurt somebody, because that's really what the movie's about. So it's more just, I laugh at it more than anything. So that's why I share that story, because it's funny. But there are times where it gets so nitpicky where you're like, okay, wait a minute. Like sometimes studios or people that approve start playing art director and you're like, wait a minute, like, okay, but we have our own vision. And as long as we're not like steering your property, your film into an area you don't want it to go in, like, I appreciate that, like you keeping us, in those limitations. But when you start playing art director, sometimes it gets a little like, oh, come on. Like, it's almost like it's subjective.
Why am I here?
Yeah, it's subjective at that point. It's like, look, you might not like that, but we like it, and this is like, we want to do this, as long as it's not crapping on your property. We, let us do what we feel is going to sell.
Absolutely. Guys, also moving, you announced, I think it was today, the second wave of Halloween figures. I mean, what's it like getting into that world? Because the figure world, especially in the horror genre, I feel is very deep and in depth. And Fright-Rags entering that was kind of a big deal, and I know you guys don't have a ton yet, but you guys are getting your foot in there. Are you hoping for a future with figures, or is this just something cool you wanted to do?
It's a little bit of both. So you're right. The horror figure landscape is wide and deep, right? And look, I'm not interested in entering a category where we do the same thing everybody else does. Because quite frankly, like if someone's doing it and doing it well, then why are we getting into that space, right? So the whole conversation around figures started with my friend Mark, who started Plastic Meatball, who is our partner in the figures. He has a figural background. He worked for Mattel and other companies. And so he wanted to start this company, but he wanted to work with some properties, and he and I got together, and he's like, well, could we do together? And that's what started us doing Joe Bob figures, because I thought, well, that's going to be an easy one for us to get like approvals and add it. Because again, when you get a license for a film, you're getting it for certain categories. So if we have it for t-shirts and socks and lounge pants, we might not have it for figures. And if you want to add figures to that, depending on the studio or company, it could cost you a ton of money, or they might not even let you until your renewal. So I thought, well, what's the easiest one we could do right now to get started? And Joe Bob's the easiest one because we've been working with him for a long time. And I thought, and there's the fans are so rabid for him. So I thought, well, let's try it. Well, it worked out great. In fact, that we sold the first 1,000 figures out like within a day or two. We had to do another run, which we changed to shirt color because those were limited. And then we did a Darcy, of course. And then we thought, I know Super 7 did, Michael Myers, but that was several years ago. I would love to do another Michael, but, Mark and I were like, yeah, but we want to do the characters that you don't see, like Lori or Annie or, Linda or, Loomis, all these figures. Like, what about the other characters? Like, I'm a fan of, obviously it's my favorite movie of all time. I want all the figures, right?
Yeah.
So, we thought, okay, let's break it up into waves. Obviously, Michael's got to be in there, and then we'll just do Linda and Lori. And then we were already planning on wave 2, which was Annie and Brackett and Loomis, which are coming out next week. So that's kind of the main set. And then, we have others in the works for that film, but it is difficult adding that category to other licenses because so many people have it. So if another company has, say, 3 3/4 inch action figures for a property, they might not let us do it as well. And that's fair. But we always approach it from a stance of what can we do that really hasn't been done before? Like, for example, if we were ever to do, like, say, Friday the 13th or something, yeah, Jason would be great, but I want to do Alice or, Ginny from part 2 or Shelly from part 3, right? Now, the problem with that is when you start getting into those characters and certain licenses, unless you get their approval, you won't be able to do it because the companies aren't going to give you the rights to those likenesses. With Halloween, it was fine. We were able to do what we wanted, but sometimes those ancillary characters, you're just not going to have the approval. So that's another thing to navigate. So we do have a roadmap for figures within the next 2 years that will keep us busy. And quite frankly, we're also not trying to release figures every week or anything. So this is very much a, hey, here's a wave of figures. And then several months are going to go by and here's another figure. It's not, we aren't trying to flood the market or we're just doing it where we can and when we can. And if it's going to work out for everybody involved and if we're having fun doing it, so I wouldn't say that it's something where we're going to try to do every possible thing we can. We're going to do it wherever we can. Same thing with trading cards. It's that's another hard category to do, but as long as we can get the rights to do it, we'll do them.
I like that even more. You know what I mean? Like there is such a lane for, just because you enjoy doing it, you love doing it, you want to put it out there. There's such a world for that too. Like it makes it more of a special thing when you guys do it.
Yeah, because we're not, really, we're not trying to like overtake that category or do every possible thing that you can do. We're not trying to make, it's like a Funko Pop. Like, it's like, okay, we get it already. Everything's been done. Like, it almost becomes too much, in my mind, at least. I know people love them, and I don't, I'm not harping on anybody who likes them. I'm just, for my opinion, I like doing it where it's like, okay, this makes sense for us. This makes sense in general. Let's go for it. And if that means it's only 3 figures a year or 2 or 1, then fine. I don't care. We have plenty of other things that we're doing. Figures are not the primary
right
product that we sell. They're just fun to do when we can do it. And again, that goes for almost anything else because we just love it, what we do so much that we just want to keep having fun doing it.
Absolutely. You mentioned the lounge pants too. Please, personal request, please do more lounge pants.
Oh, we are
oh, thank God.
The part of the issue with the lounge pants is when you get to working with certain factories, their minimum order quantities are kind of high. And when you factor in how much inventory you're going to have to carry and the space they take up and all these other factors, it's like we're basically trying to spread it across a couple different factories. We have to work. Okay, so one of the reasons why you have to work with certain factories is certain studios and companies have requirements for the factories you work with outside of the US. So if you're working with any overseas factory, you have to be what's called BSCI compliant. There's all these regulations that a factory must meet, requirements that the factory must meet in order to be approved by the studio so that you can work with them. If you don't get approval, then you cannot work with that factory, and that's bad news. So if the factory is BSCI approved, then we can work with them, but a lot of factories aren't. And again, some of those regulations are ensuring that the working environment is, clean, that the people are treated well. There's a whole list of things. And so if a company isn't BSCI compliant, well, we have to get an audit for that company, they have to be audited by a third-party auditor, and they'll dude, we've had findings where they're like, hey, there's a mop in the corner, you got to fix that before you're BSCI compliant.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's those types of things. So we just have to ensure that we're doing those things on our part, so that we're a good partner with our licensors and things like that. But that's a long-winded way of saying we want to do more lounge pants. We're just trying to figure out ways that we can do smaller quantities so we can do more variety, if that makes sense.
Love me some lounge pants, let me tell you.
They're comfy. I love them too.
Yeah. I'll wear them out. I don't care. I will do it.
It's funny about those lounge pants. My wife had bought me some black lounge pants years ago, and I just would not stop wearing them around the house. And I was like, I got to make these, but I just sent my lounge pants to China and went, can you do these? And they're like, yep. And I'm like, cool. And I sent them a design and they sent me a sample. I'm like, done, we're doing them, because they were so comfy.
I love it.
Can I make a request also? If Mikey gets a request for lounge pants, I want more Shaun of the Dead merch. I go broke every time Shaun of the Dead is in.
I think we have a release plan this year. We're definitely going to be doing more Shaun of the Dead. Whether it's a combo of reprints and new stuff or what, but yeah, we'll be doing more for sure.
I've got like the socks and a couple of the t-shirts. I'm wearing the hoodie now. They're just you guys have the best Shaun of the Dead designs ever.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. It's a hard one to do because you can't really use likeness on that one except for like the poster art and stuff. So it's one of those like, okay, how creative can we get with this? So there's definitely more we can do with it for sure.
Yay.
Do you have a favorite? That was one of my last remaining questions for you too. We walked right into it again. Is there like it's got to be impossible to decide, but is there anything that sticks out to you that Fright-Rags has done that is just that's your best one?
It is a hard one. I mean, we've done thousands of designs, and I'm pretty. It's interesting. I'm pretty critical of what we do, in the sense that, I mean, I love what we do, obviously, and not everything we do is something that I keep in my closet. I mean, I have pretty much one of every shirt because of an art, for an archive's sake. But in my own closet, obviously, I only have a few. And it's funny, the few that I wear are the ones that I've been wearing for the last several years. I just don't change them out. Like, some might change up, but I'm just constantly wearing the Halloween ones and Night of the Living Dead and whatever. But it's really hard because, like, I'll buy a shirt from another company and I'll be like, man, this is like, they nailed it or something. And then I look at what we do and I love it, but it's almost like I'm being so critical about everything that it's hard to step away from it. But I usually come back to like Justin Osborne, who's one of our primary artists. He's the guy's a genius. We've been working with him for about 13 years now. He's just amazing. He's only gotten better. And when I look at his Halloween design he did for us in 2016, it was the second one he had done for us. He did one for the 35th anniversary in 2013, which I thought, oh, it doesn't get any better than this. Like, this is it. Like, we can just stop now, right? And then he did another one in 2016 with Michael up top and Laurie's at the bottom on the stairs, kind of looking fearful and scared. And I thought, oh my God, this like sums up this movie so well. And it's funny, he's even gotten better since then. And he did one in 2018 for the 40th, which I love too. But that's one I keep coming back to, and I just love it. And we use that as a template for 2018 because we wanted to have an older Laurie standing there, under Michael, who's been, with the aged mask. And we even use that as a template for kills and then ends, of course, because now she's about to fight him. So it became this like template for Halloween. So now you can see the evolution of these from the movies and the designs. And that was completely on purpose. But it was, I don't know. I guess I go back to that one. Although I will say this, on top of that one of our other artists, Kyle Crawford, who works with us exclusively, he does a lot of these TV ad designs that I love because they remind me of the old TV guide ads and things. And so he did one for Halloween, and it said first time on TV, and he actually used the logo of our when I was growing up, I didn't have cable, so our Fox affiliate channel was local channel UHF. Funny enough, because it's like the movie, but UHF channel 31, and it's no longer around. But he uses that logo on the shirt, so it's almost like a local channel for me. And so it has everything on the shirt that I love. It's one color. It's just one print. It says first time on TV, Halloween, Friday night at 8 o'clock with the channel 31 logo, even though it was on 8 at that time. And to me, I wear that all the time. And I might have to say between that and what Osborne did for the original Halloween, because again, that's my favorite movie, are up there with my favorites. And I think it also kind of is a full circle moment because that's what got me into horror by seeing Halloween when I was 4.
Oh, okay. I'm scared now because I was planning on asking you this question, Ben, but now I'm scared to do it because you really ironed in that Halloween's your favorite film.
Well, I mean, ask away, because I mean, I can omit Halloween and then we can talk about other things, because I will be
no.
Halloween, yeah.
It was more of an inside thing on the show. We recently, Kat knows where I'm going.
We're constantly dragging people into our show drama.
Okay, that's cool.
We recently did a tournament, and I was planning on getting your thoughts on this, and then I'll ask anyway. One of the matchups towards the end, and it was films like best horror films, and it was a whole March Madness bracket. There was a matchup that was very, very hot, and it was Halloween, the original Halloween versus the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ooh, in terms of what's a better film?
What was a better horror film?
Ooh. See, okay. It's hard. Like, look,
it's hard.
Texas Chainsaw is, again, one of my favorite movies. Look, it's very hard for me because Halloween is
right,
very much my favorite.
That plays into it. That's fair.
But I will say this: I would not. Here's the thing: I would never, if you were to tell me, "Hey, look, Texas Chainsaw is the best horror movie, is better than Halloween," I'm not going to argue with you because you would have your own take on it, right? Like
right.
I mean, it's all subjective, of course.
Right. Oh, yeah.
They're both masterpieces in their own right. So to me, I'm like, they're both amazing. So if you're saying, hey, you were 4 and you saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre and that got you into horror, well, then I would say you should say Texas Chainsaw Massacre because that's definitely the better movie, right? Yeah. So for me, I do think it's just so hard because they're so different, but they're so different in amazing ways. Where John Carpenter's film is slow and plodding and atmospheric, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just brutal and visceral, and you can smell that film. You know what I mean? Like you can smell it, you can feel the heat coming off the film. That moment where he comes out of the house and grabs what's her name from the porch, like. It's still a hard movie to kind of watch sometimes. You know what I mean? I mean, I've seen it countless times. And it's funny, my son watched it a couple years ago, and he's been into horror movies. He's 13 now, but this was probably when he was around, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. And he actually kind of got bored with it, which first of all, it was on a smaller TV. I should have had him in like our theater room with the surround sound so he could like totally get immersed in it. But even then, like he's seen modern horror movies like It and other films where they're for, I guess, a more modern audience. Just like Halloween. Halloween is kind of slow and basic compared to newer movies, even though I still think it works. I also understand why people maybe don't find it as scary because that's the movie that started the tropes, of a lot of slasher films. So, I mean, look, my answer is going to be Halloween, but I don't begrudge anybody that says Texas Chainsaw Massacre is their favorite of the two.
That's what our co-host that's not here, Rob, said too. And then once
Except for he left.
Yeah, once Halloween officially lost, he threw a fit and left.
Wow. I mean, that's a bit of a harsh reaction. I mean, look, like I said, it's my favorite movie of all time, but because these things are so subjective, I never really like crap on anyone.
Be our third co-host.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is the attitude that we need for the brackets.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, I mean, we all come from we all have our own stories. We all have our own things, our paths to this. So to me, I've never wanted to like argue with people about what's better and what's not. You know, I mean, I think there's sometimes it's fun to have a healthy sort of banter on things, and that's of course
a debate.
Yeah, it's fun to debate things because why not? But man, to actually get upset or anything over like this, to me, I'm like, really? Like, I got other things going on in my life. I don't need to be upset about this. You know, this is my happy place, right?
Yeah. Ben, thank you so much for your time today, sir. It's been a pleasure. Can you tell us something maybe like what, like I said, you guys announced the Halloween figures today. Is there anything else that you want everybody to know about Fright-Rags? Tell them where they can find you, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, our website is fright-rags.com. And you can find us on social media. It's just at Fright-Rags, all one word, on Twitter and Instagram and even TikTok for as much as we're on that, which isn't a ton, but try it a little bit. Other than that, we've got a bunch of stuff coming. I mean, we're constantly releasing stuff. I will say that next month we are going to be celebrating Killer Clowns from Outer Space 35th anniversary with some really cool new things that we've got in the works that we've backed a couple of things we've never done before, which is going to be kind of fun. And we're actually we're finally getting, and I don't know if we've teased this at all. We certainly haven't teased any designs, but in terms of teased it at all, we're going to be doing Frankenhooker, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh,
yeah,
we were just talking about that not too long ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So that's our first time working with it officially. We actually just got all of our designs approved today. It was like the literally quickest approval we've ever had in our lives. Like it was within 4 minutes of sending the email, and we got approval. So that was pretty amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, a lot of stuff coming up. The Halloween 2 game that we teased several months ago is finally almost ready to be released on Kickstarter, and we're hoping to announce that in a couple weeks as well.
Nice. I also the Evil Dead Rise and the Joe Bob too. I know was a very recent release that looked great.
Oh, so. Thanks. Yeah, Evil Dead Rise was that came down to the wire, but I'm really happy that everything got and we got it printed in time for people to wear it this weekend. And Joe Bob, he's just great to work with, and we're always happy to do new stuff. We did Puffy stickers with him, and we have new Puffy stickers coming out next week for other films. Night of the Living Dead, Monster Squad, Creepshow 2. We're gonna be doing more of those. And yeah, man, and Joe Bob starts this weekend, so it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Is there anywhere people can find you personally you want to let them know, or?
Yeah, I mean, my email is just ben@frightrags.com. And again, it's fright-rags.com. If everyone wants to contact me personally, that's cool. Or I'm usually the one in the DMs for Twitter and Instagram as well. So I mean, we have a customer service team and they take care of a lot of that stuff, but I'm always checking the comments. I'm always checking those things because I want to see what people are saying. I mean, it's nice to know the good and the bad. I want to know if there's an issue. I want to know if people are having problems or something, because then we can address it. Again, I have a great, wonderful team of people that help and do all these things, but I don't want to be away from what's happening because if I see something like just a quick example, today I was on Twitter and someone was really upset they couldn't get their Evil Dead Rise shirts for their show tonight, for the movie tonight, and I didn't realize, but they asked if they could order, like it was a weird thing, but they said they could get them from the store, and I'm like, well, we don't have a store, like we have an office and warehouse, but we don't have a storefront. But anyway, she's local, and I realized that, and I was like, oh, I'm like, well, we really don't do local pickup. It's just kind of like a thing. So I said, you know what, I contacted my warehouse supervisor. I'm like, look, we got this woman, she really wants to wear these shirts tonight. I'm like, let's just, this one-time thing, let her pick them up. She can order online and we'll give her free shipping, so she doesn't have to pay shipping for something she's picking up. And it was like kind of a one-time thing we did because it was an extenuating circumstance, and she was over the moon about it because she got to wear her shirts tonight, and
yeah,
it's a small thing. And again, we're busy. It's hard to like have people just be coming into our warehouse and, hanging out or something. So we don't want to open it up like that. But in this case, like if you're going to swing by and just get a package, it's totally cool. And she was, grateful for that, but I was just happy we were able to help her out. So, it's stuff like that where you see it, you try to help, you try to, brighten someone's day and move on.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, because that does mean something. You're going to an event, you want to be the
Sure.
yeah, in horror especially. Absolutely. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so I'm just glad we were able to do it, and now she can wear the shirts tonight, and I get it because I would want the same thing if I could.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna heading over to the Fright-Rags Twitter to spam lounge pants.
Go
Thank you so much though, Ben. We appreciate your time very much today, sir. And thank you for all the hard work you put in with Fright-Rags is awesome, man. We love you guys.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you and everybody listening for their support because, without that, we couldn't do this. So we greatly appreciate it as well.
Thank you. Well, again, your time has been very appreciated, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.